second while I get this all. Perfect. So you should be getting that confirmation in just a bit if you haven't already. So just a few disclaimers and a few things for everybody. Please use the chat function if you have questions throughout this presentation. That'll help me. I know that I really appreciate everybody's voices, but sometimes when 30 or 40 of us are speaking at the same time, I just kind of lose my mind a little bit. So that's one thing. And the other is, if you do have any questions or you can't hear me, please feel free to put that in the chat as well, because I'm trying to monitor that as this goes. And also technology is the worst. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started and jump right on in. So give me 1 second. All right. So the overview of this presentation is just, it's going to be an introduction from me. I'm going to go over the SPH Dean's Office Awards. So what awards we have available in the Dean's Office. And so understanding the difference between departmental nominations and ones that you can apply to directly. I want to go over the funding process of the School of Public Health. So just in general, broad strokes. I'm going to talk about who can apply to these awards, the life cycle of our awards, and tips for success. And I also have some Q&A at the end for folks that submitted questions, or maybe if you send them in the chat, I can answer them then. So if there are any questions, you know what to do, put it in the chat. But I will go ahead and move right on. So for those of you that don't know me, maybe you are prospective, oops, I got a little too excited. So for those of you that don't know me, maybe you're a prospective student, maybe you just applied to UW and you're waiting to hear back. Maybe you're a current student and you already know who I am. My name is Jalen and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am the manager of outreach and scholarship for the Dean's Office. And what I do is I help connect students, primarily prospective students, to resources, their departments. So let's say, for example, you are thinking about getting a degree in public health. I will probably be the first person you would talk to, because then I would forward you to the advisors and other people in the school. And I also manage scholarships in the Dean's Office that are on behalf of the entire School of Public Health. And if you're confused about that, I'll get into it in the next slide. So let me move on. So the funding opportunities at UW-SPH, please don't judge me for my really silly little circle graph thing. I tried really hard to make it cute, but then I was like, you know what, I don't get paid enough for this. So the Dean's Office Awards are separate from departmental awards. And what that means is the Dean's Office Awards, so the 8 awards that I will show on the next slide, are separate from the department in which you applied to. So this is what this graph means. So the Dean's Office is kind of like the core of the school. So of course we're the Dean's Office, and the awards that I have are just the ones that I oversee. There may be awards in like health services, in health services, for example, if you're applying to health services, and you should be able to ask any advisor upon admission, what resources are there for health services? And sorry, rewind a little bit, but I'm going to use health services as an example. I'm not playing favorites. It's just the first one that popped into my head. So let's just say that you get accepted to health services. Woohoo, you're going to get a master's degree. That's awesome. So the first thing that you should do if you're curious about where to get funding, definitely reach out to health services, the advisors that will reach out to you. There's kind of an equivalent to me in every department. So a Jalen that does outreach or scholarship funding work. And there may be awards in health services that I don't know about and I don't oversee. So it's always a good rule of thumb to say, hey, health services folks, I'm really interested for any departmental funding that you have. Let me know, because Jalen said so. That way, if anything happens, I will be the one to get in trouble. Just kidding. Hopefully no one gets in trouble. All right. So, all right, don't panic. I know there's a lot on this slide. This is why I'm recording it, and also I'll post it on our website so you can see what this means. But these are all of the awards that are available for 2021 and 2022. So these are just in the Dean's Office. So remember that slide just like 2 seconds ago, and I said the Dean's Office is like the core of the school. Well, these are the 8 awards that the Dean's Office, so me, will be overseeing this year. So I'm going to go through each one and just talk about them a little bit. Don't worry about trying to retain this. This is all on our website. I just want to break down some of the terminology because you might scroll through the website and be like, what does this mean? Well, that's why I'm here. So we're going to start with the most popular of our awards for graduate students. So these are for incoming master's students only. There's no specific criteria when applying, but only for incoming master's students. And the reason why for only incoming master's student, the SPH Dean's Master's Fellowship is supposed to serve a master's student for their 2 years. So this award is for 2 years. You'll get an award your first year and then your second year if you're selected. There's nothing specific that you have to do. There's no courses you have to take. There's no teaching you have to do. You just get money, which is great. The criteria is we look to award underserved students. So not just BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, people of color, but maybe you're a queer student or you're a first gen student, or you're someone that has been impacted somehow by something. We want to hear your story and see how we as a school can help support you. So that's one of the awards. And oh my gosh, y'all, look at me clicking through this. Okay, so let me go back a little bit and okay, sorry, okay, perfect. So the next award is, actually, sorry. The reason why I say the SPH Dean's Master's Fellowship is the most popular is because it's the most broad. And I think a lot of students see if you haven't seen the application for it yet, it's just a 3,000 word essay about your experiences, being marginalized or working with marginalized communities. And a lot of students apply for it, which is great. It just makes my job and the committee's job really hard to weed through the amazing applications. So don't envy me. So the next award is the Grayston-Day Fellowship. So this is for current students only. Current students, so prospective students, not want to close your ears. But so reach out to your department if you're interested. And doctoral students are strongly preferred for this. And the reason why doctoral students is because Grayston and Day, I believe, are the first 2 deans of the School of Medicine or the School of Public Health. I can't remember, sorry. But they wanted to award doctoral students. So we try to honor the endowment agreement. So that's why some of these are so specific. It's not me, Jalen, wanting to, not give you money, but it's just what the donors or the people who gave us this money are looking for. So that is for Grayston-Day. I always recommend for PhD students to sort of keep an eye out for this one. So the next one is the Magnuson Scholars Fellowship, which is for current students only, and it's nomination based. So that means that current students can reach out to the departments and say, hey, I'm very interested in being selected for nominated for the Magnuson. The Magnuson Scholars, I will take the nominated students and I will bring them back to the committee. But ultimately, for this award specifically, I am not the one that chooses it. It is forwarded to another governing body and they choose the awardee. So a little bit of politics, but just to let you know that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes for that. The next one is the Patrick-Beresford Fellowship in Social Epidemiology. This award is also for current students only. So the Patrick-Beresford Fellowship is probably one of our most niche fellowships. And when I say niche, I mean, you see social epidemiology. So some of you are like, oh, I know what that is. I did not know what this was, social epidemiology was, when I first started this job 2 years ago. And I read this really incredible application for a student that talked about how sexual violence was a socially epidemic issue. And I was like, wow, this is just an incredible, incredible way to frame this issue that goes unnoticed and untalked about. So, but the reason why current students are looked to to apply for this award is that it wants students to have already taken or be taking specific School of Public Health courses. So let me see what those, I wrote them down. Oh, here they are. So the courses are EPI 548, HServ 514, and HServ 548. So I know this, if you're a current student and you're like, these don't exist, I know. This endowment agreement was written a long time ago. So whatever the courses are now, I'll get those to you all that have questions about it. But whatever those courses are now, or what courses, or whatever courses they were in like 2004 when this was written, is what it will be now. So I have to do digging to figure out what they are. And the next, excuse me, the next one is the Remak Scholarship. So the Remak is relatively new. So if you've applied for awards with us before, this is something that we took offline last year, but this year we brought it back. So anyone can apply for this award. It's so anyone means undergraduates and graduate students, prospective or current. So hip hip hooray for that. Anybody can get money. But it is also one that is very specific. So it's focused on South African public health work. So if you're someone that is, maybe you're from South Africa, or you've done a research project relating to South Africa, or something within that range, this would be an excellent award for you to apply for, because again, since it's so niche, we don't get a lot of applications for it. So I'm empowering anybody, like if you just narrowly fit the application, please apply, because I want to give out money. And the next one is the Sph Endowed Fellowship. So again, only current students can apply this year. This award, we seek to award one PhD student and one master's student. This will just be for 1 year. So very similar to the Dean's Master's Fellowship. It's just, we want to help improve the conditions of BIPOC people and marginalized people, and folks that we feel don't get seen a lot in college applications and selection processes. So yeah. And the next one is the James McDermott Global Health Endowed Fellowship. So any graduate student can apply. So that means incoming graduate student, prospective grad, or sorry, same thing. So incoming, prospective, or a current one can apply for it. It again is very self-explanatory. It's a Global Health Endowed Fellowship. So if you have an interest in global health, if you've done a project in global health, if you are maybe from another country and you're wanting to explore global health issues, but you don't know how that works, just talk to me and I can help you suss out some research so we can get you to apply for this. I'm very good at finessing things like that. And the last one is the Rattling Gourd Scholarship. So anyone can apply. Anyone can apply for this. It's available for undergraduates and graduates, just like the Remak Scholarship is. But again, this one is very specific because it is looking to award Native or Indigenous folks, especially folks who have done K through 12 education in Washington State. So needless to say, that eradicates a lot of people. Last year, we kept this award open. I kept it open all the way until about June, and before I was able to award someone, and it opened in January. So needless to say, it takes a long time for me to find someone that fits the criteria for this award. So again, these are the 8 awards that will be available this winter and spring term. I know it's like drinking from a very violent fire hose with all of this, but don't worry, I will try to slow down in the next slide. So, all right, so the award types. So we're gonna sort of parse this down a little bit more. So for current students only, those awards are the Grayston-Day, the Magnuson, Patrick-Beresford, and the Endowed Fellowship. For prospective and current graduate students, the SPH Dean's Fellowship and the McDermott. So let me, sorry, I just realized I contradicted myself. So on the prospective and current graduate students, I say SPH Dean's Fellowship. In the last one, wait, actually, never mind. Sorry, forget about that. I was thinking of the Endowed. See, this is what happens when I manage so much stuff. So never mind. What's on the slide is perfectly correct. So the next one, for undergrad and graduate students, the Remak and Rattling Gourd are available for you. And so again, at the bottom, I say graduate denotes both master's and PhD students. So the last thing I want to talk about is departmental nomination only. So if you go to our website and you see it says departmental nomination only, it's another way of saying current UW students only, because we're looking to nominate students that are currently here. And again, if you are a current student and you want to be considered for a nomination, just reach out to your department and tell them, hey, I'd love to be interested or considered for one of these nominations. Again, it's not a guarantee that you will be nominated, but it helps the really overwhelmed student services staff in different departments. So people like me, it helps them to know who to keep on their radar, because there are so many great students that it's just hard for us to figure out who do we nominate. So definitely look and be vocal for those. So yeah, those are the four main types of awards just to keep in mind. And I just really hope that the departmental nomination helps out a little bit. Excuse me. So the next, the award process and the life cycle and the timeline. So this is what we're looking at right now. For those of you that don't know me, I'm very flexible. And for those of you that might not know yet, we're in a global pandemic. So this year I'm being super, super flexible. Life happens. That is my motto. It's been my motto for the last like 11 months. But life happens. I fully understand that you have a long time to work on these. And if you need to submit your application late, just let me know. I get it. So the awards opened on December 14th, a couple of weeks ago. And January through February, the information sessions like this will be ongoing. So I'll be talking to folks and learning more about what students and applicants are looking for and what issues are coming up. Also during this time, I'll be assembling the faculty committees that are going to be reviewing your applications, and we'll just be talking through the process. So early March is when the selection committee plus me will assemble. Sorry, I sound like an Avenger when I say we'll assemble. So we'll assemble to review applications. Mid-March is when the committee will bring their final recommendations to me. And then by April 15th, all applicants will be notified. I put a star by this because it is always my hope to let you know by April 15th. But if you're an alternate, the process can take a little bit longer. And I want to speak a little bit about this because if any of you were in my award process last year, some of you are probably rolling your eyes into your skull because you're like, oh, I know. But with COVID, unfortunately, with a lot of students, they had to defer. A lot of students had to withdraw. And so that means that after I made decisions on April 15th of last year, students would reach out to me in about August and say, hey, Jalen, I'm withdrawing. So a student that I had already declined for an award, I would have to reach back out to them and say, hey, actually, would you like to get the McDermott award or whatever it was? And so that's why I really try to toe the line between, you're an alternate. I will tell you straight up, you're an alternate. You're still a very strong contender. I'm still waiting for someone to accept. So, please bear with me. But I know a lot of you may be applying to other schools that have already given you funding. So, please talk to me if you run into that issue, because I will try to be as straight up with you as possible. So that's where we're sitting right now. Again, I know that life is going to happen to us, myself included. So if you need time to get your stuff together, or if you're still unclear on something, just reach out to me and I will be happy to share or do what I can to assist you. So moving right along, other funding sources. So I know that just 8 awards and maybe like 3 for current students or 4 for current students and 3 for prospective students. That's not a lot. It's not a lot at all. I know that, you know that, especially in a pandemic. Like I just said, like we're in a pandemic, not getting a lot of support, so money is tight. So I've tried to look for a lot of resources that are available for students. So just reiterating, go to your home department and ask them what is available there. You can tell them I've already talked to Jalen in the dean's office and they told me to talk to you. They will probably inevitably bounce you back to me, which that just happens sometimes because our school is super massive. But just tell them what you're interested in. I'm more than happy to work with students who might be BIPOC or queer, who need a little bit more support navigating the institution, because I get that as a BIPOC queer person. And yeah, so I'm happy to support in that way. One of the next sources is the Husky Seed Fund. I love to refer current students to this because I see a lot of really, really incredible research topics and research projects that they're working on, but they're like, I don't have the money to do this. So I always like to forward them to the Seed Fund to try to get those projects covered. And the next one is, of course, the Office of Student Financial Aid. So I've laid out links here for you to go to those websites. they have more info on applying for the FAFSA, the WASFA, any other information relating to awards. They are also a good website, or they're also a good resource to go to if you have questions about stacking your scholarships and your loans and your grants and your TA-ships. They are really the financial experts. Unfortunately, I'm not. So a few of you will come to me and ask, like, Jalen, how much is XYZ fees? Unfortunately, I don't know that specifically, but they and the Office of Financial Aid know everything. So definitely use them as a resource. They're very helpful. And so the next one is the Husky Promise. It's for undergrads only, but it's mainly for Washington State folks who have been here and they're Washington State residents and they're applying for undergraduate admission. So I'm not expecting a lot of folks here are applying for undergraduate admission, but if you are, it's totally fine. Hit me up because I'd love to refer you to this. And the last one is RA and TA opportunities. So teaching assistantships or research assistantships. I sent a link to the I have a link to that website here. So again, I will be sending this PowerPoint out to everybody that registered for this session, so don't worry. But research assistantships and teaching assistantship position are an option to help you pay for school. And essentially how these opportunities come out is they will either be posted to the website or they'll be forwarded to your department's email chain. So for example, epidemiology has an epi email account and they'll just send out opportunities, so like TA ships or RA ships. So keep your eyes peeled on your email. Also, faculty in your classes might share out the opportunity. So they might be like, hey, if you're interested in this, just FYI. So make sure you're paying attention. I'm trying to think what else with TA ships. Again, I really empower folks to, if you are also applying for our Dean's Office Awards, make sure that you are checking with the Office of Financial Aid just to check and see what it'll look like if you were to get a Dean's Office Award and you're doing a teaching assistantship, just because I never want folks to be in a position where they just don't have enough or they have too much and then it kind of messes with their aid. That can definitely be an issue and it's happened in the past. So again, reach out to the Office of Financial Aid. They're really, really helpful with students who have a lot of different types of awards or no awards and they're looking for other opportunities. All right. So let me pause here. I saw a couple of questions in the chat. So let me, oops. Okay. Zoom updated, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to, all right. So one question I got is how many students are accepted into the UW-SPH for master's level graduate programs each year? AKA how many people have to compete for the Dean's Master's Fellowship? Oh, this is a good question. So how many students are accepted into the UW-SPH for master's level program? I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, unfortunately, I'm sorry. But I do know how many applications I get every year. Last year I got 230 for it. Don't freak out, 230, half of those didn't end up coming to UW. The other half, well, not the other half, but a few of them applied to the wrong award. So out of the 230, I was able to award 12 of them. But I would say out of the 230, it came down to about, I would say it came down to about 80 students. And that was like true students that submitted the entire application appropriately. And then on top of that, I will be receiving nominations for the Dean's Fellowship from departmental folks. So yeah, so that's one. And I'm gonna save some of these questions for the Q&A section because these are some really good questions and I don't wanna spend too much time on them. So let me pause there and keep on going to the tips for a successful application. So this is what I got a lot of questions about. And I think this is a good question to ask yourself if you're feeling a little antsy about competing. The one thing I don't want you to feel like doing is like feeling like you have to compete. I get it, you essentially are competing, but you know, I think if you are carrying that chip on your shoulder of, oh my gosh, everybody's better than me, or everybody is like probably writing a better application than me, nah, no, don't do that. As someone who does that, don't do that, because that will just make your process way harder. So, oops, give me one second while I admit these people. So with that said, some tips that I have seen over the last couple of years is carefully read the essay prompt directions. I know this is self-explanatory and you were probably hoping for something more riveting, but you would be amazed how many people will write stellar essays and have a great resume, but they don't read the essay prompt directions. So they'll write this incredible story, but it has nothing to do with what the prompts are asking. And I see this a lot for people who have applied to multiple awards, but they're just sort of copying and pasting their essays around, which honestly, work smarter, not harder. I'm right there with you. But I think just double check what the directions are asking for. Maybe it's asking you to respond to very specific situations or a specific environment that you've been in, or for example, what public health means to you. I don't want to read an essay about, I don't know, you losing your pet dog or something like, I mean, if that inspires you to go into public health, then great. But sometimes I've just seen very odd copy and pasted essays because folks were not reading the directions, unfortunately. So the next thing is carefully read the items that must be submitted along with your application. So it kind of goes with the first point, but more specifically, things that I'm thinking of are some of the awards ask for a list of funding materials that you're going to be, or funding awards that you're going to be receiving for the upcoming academic year. So, excuse me. So that means any scholarships that you're already aware of, maybe you don't know. It's totally fine to just be like, I don't know. But a lot of folks will just not submit anything. And that's really difficult for me because I have to reach back out and say, hey, are you getting any awards? Because this is a need-based award, we really do rely on that. So that's one thing. Another one is to make sure that if it says unofficial or official transcripts, to read that carefully. There is a difference. And if you don't know, just ask me, because that actually changes from year to year based on the award that I'm giving out. The next one is really important to me and the committee in terms of selecting a candidate for an award. So for essays, I think in terms of content, one of the most important things is reflection. So do more than just list your experiences, discuss them, like discuss them, please. What kind of meaning did you make from your time doing XYZ as an example? I read a lot of applications where folks simply just rehash their resume in essay format, which, that's great, but I already have your resume. I know where you've been. I've seen what you've done. Let's talk about that now. Like what was your experience being a patient care coordinator at UW Medical? I just made that up, but like, what was your experience like? If you didn't like that job, why? What did you learn? Other folks have been sort of cautious, especially BIPOC and queer folks or other marginalized folks who are like, well, Jalen, do I have to trauma dump? Do I have to tell all about my trauma just to get accepted and get an award? Absolutely not. No, 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 no. Please don't write anything that you feel uncomfortable writing. But what I do say to folks is you should be questioning yourself, what are the reasons why I'm uncomfortable if you don't want to talk about the following things? If you don't want to talk about racism, any kind of ism, any kind of xenophobia, any kind of, I guess one word that's sort of touchy for folks is white supremacy culture. That's something that we in our School of Public Health, we're trying to combat. We're an anti-racist school. We're trying to be an anti-racist school. We talk about this concept of white supremacy culture. So for folks who are sort of cautious to talk about those things, I'm always sort of challenging them, of course, don't talk about them if you're not uncomfortable or if you're not comfortable in your essays. However, one of the core values of our school is to be able to dialogue about these things, these issues, these big things that impact public health. So my advice would be to start challenging yourself to think bigger about things. This might be the first time some of you have had to do this, to really reflect on your experiences. I get it, it's super daunting. But again, talk to me if you have questions, because I think faculty really want to be able to see at least the development of yourself, the development of self, at least in terms of situations that you've experienced or undergone. I read a lot of really powerful and moving essays from folks that talk about what they've been through and what they've accomplished, but also what they thought of these experiences and how these experiences either changed them or didn't, and why they think so or why not. And I think that is what makes a really strong essay, is sincere reflection of events and your experiences. So if you have questions about what that means, email me and we can set up a time to chat, because I guess it could be a very large thing to do for you if you haven't done it before. And the next thing is reach out to your letter of recommendation writers now if you haven't already. Some of these awards do require letters of recommendation. So if you are planning on applying for an award that does request that, I would reach out to them now. Just some of you may have written letters of recommendation and you know what it's like when someone asks you the day of or the day before and you're just like, oh my goodness, I want to say no, but I have to say yes. Don't put your mentors in that position, you know. It's being selfish here, but you know, don't do that. But I get life happens. So if you are not going to be submitting a letter of recommendation for whatever reason, let me know. Reach out to me. Say, hey, Jalen, I'm not going to be able to get this part of my application in. Can you please extend the deadline for me? And I would be happy to do that. And the next thing is email me with questions, and do not do this alone. So when I was in grad school, one of my mentors told me, Jalen, if you want to fail at something, then you should do it alone. In this case, she was talking about getting a job, but after grad school. But I think in this process, if you really want to not do well, you will just do this process by yourself. You will write your essays by yourself. You will, you know, answer questions for yourself. If you're not sure about something, you'll just do it on your own. Try not to do that. Ask me if no one else. For example, I'm a human and I make mistakes. Last year, full disclosure, I did my first mail merge, went working from home, doing these awards. I sent notifications to folks who actually received awards, and I was saying, sorry, we didn't select you. There was confusion. Everybody was mad at me. Just kidding, they weren't mad, but things happen, all right? And we mess up sometimes. So don't do it alone. Don't ruminate on things. Because I want everybody to be as successful as possible. And grad school is not meant to be, or school in general is not meant to be so stressful that you're worried about how to pay for it and you're not really learning anything in the classroom. I'm trying to really hammer in that perspective. But again, it's easy for me to say as someone who's not doing it currently. So moving forward, I think that is, yes. Okay, so now I can go to the questions. So these questions that I have on the screen are the ones that popped up the most in the Zoom questions. So I asked you all to submit questions if you had them, and these are the ones that came up the most. And I also have some in my Zoom inbox or in my Zoom chat. But some of these I unfortunately will not be able to answer. Again, full disclosure, being as honest as possible. But I do say that is if I cannot answer these questions, I will go out of my way, not out of my way, but I will go out of the School of Public Health and I will ask the Office of Financial Aid the answer to these questions, because again, some of these I just don't know. So I'm gonna do the FAQs on the screen first, and then I will move to the chat. Also, if you feel like you've gotten enough information from this session and you don't want to listen to the FAQs, feel free to leave. I won't be upset. But yeah, I want to make sure I get everyone's questions. So the first question is, how do graduate students normally pay for schooling? Great question, and I think this answer varies a lot. So I know that there are probably current grad students at UW-SPH that are in this that are like, oh, you know, I do a lot of different things. And that's just the reality. Some folks do a mixture of RATA plus they have scholarships. Some folks do odd jobs on campus, so they'll do part-time work and then go to school part-time or full-time. Some folks just do purely scholarships, and that is how they're able to do it. A lot of folks take out loans, which of course the L word is not what we want to hear, but I think a lot of folks take out loans as a last resort, and that's what I empower them to do. So again, that will be your fallback option. So you've applied to all the scholarships that you can. You know, I've worked with you to apply to different scholarships outside of my realm of knowledge, so outside of the School of Public Health. Then we will start talking about loans and what that looks like. So there are a lot of different ways. Folks normally live with roommates. So if you're not from Seattle, definitely we can chat about that, because I came from Arkansas and I moved to Seattle. So Arkansas in the South, very different from the Pacific Northwest. So if you're gonna move across country, we can chat about that. So the next question that I got a lot of questions about was, how much will it cost? This question I cannot answer because it varies quite a bit. We have 15 different, as an example, we have 15 different MPH programs and they do vary quite a bit. So what I empower students to do, or applicants to do, is to reach out to their department, so their departmental advisor, just to ask them these questions, because they will have the most historical data about this. They will have the most up-to-date data on this, whereas I do not. So I might know about specific departments, but unfortunately, I don't know about everything. And then the next one is, does UW-SPH send notice of funding when I am accepted? Unfortunately, no. So UW-SPH is a little different than a lot of other schools. So they don't, quote unquote, package funding when you are accepted. So some schools will send out, congratulations, you were accepted. Here's your notice of acceptance. And also here are the 2 scholarships or fellowships you were awarded. Unfortunately, we don't do that here at UW. We just have a lot of processes running concurrently. But the goal is to get you the decision before your deadline to commit to a graduate program. So we do not have, again, we do not send a notice of funding when you're accepted. You'll just get your offer of admission, and that'll be it. But in the future, it is my hope that we can send notices once we send out admissions decisions. That would be amazing, but again, baby steps. So moving on, the next question I had is, how do PhD students get funding? So again, this question is a little tricky to answer because PhD students all across the School of Public Health have a lot, I don't want to say a lot more opportunities, but they have, I would say, a little bit more bandwidth in terms of how they structure their funding. I think just by nature of being a PhD or doctoral student, there are less doctoral students in general. So there are more options for funding available, I would say. And again, this is not to overpromise, but I would say that most doctoral students I know have their funding covered some way or somehow. Meaning they have a TA-ship that covers tuition, or an RA-ship that covers tuition, and or maybe a fellowship or something. I know that in a couple of departments, most PhD students are fully funded. But again, I don't want to overpromise that. But again, it's hard for me to say that I've ran into a PhD student that is hurting for funds simply by nature of how many PhD students we have, which isn't a lot, and the opportunities that we have, which are kind of a lot. So it kind of balances out a little bit. And sort of along with this, how do MS, MHA, and PhD students find funding? So basically, this whole presentation was about how to find funding. And I think this question was asking about like more. Jalen, give me more. I know I'm really working on trying to add more opportunities, but I think the most important and the most critical thing that you can do is to reach out to your department, reach out to the Office of Student Financial Aid, and to reach out to me. Those are the 3 biggest things that you can do. And then regardless of if I'm able to connect you with funding, I can at least point you in the direction of what is coming down the pipeline. It's just so difficult because everybody's journeys are different and we're all looking for different opportunities and different things. So please reach out to me so we can chat about that if you have questions about that. Excuse me. What opportunities are available for international students? So all of these awards that I talked about, so the 8 that I talked about, if you're an international student, you can apply for them if you meet the criteria. There's no barring you if you're an international student, if you're not born in the state of Washington, unless the award calls for it. You're not barred from any of them. It will not impact you. Same thing for if you're in a fee-based program, you're eligible for any of the awards that I just talked about. But in terms of the broader UW community and what resources are available, We do have an international student office, of course, that I connect students with a lot just to chat about their issues. This past year, for example, we had issues with student visas, and the prices of their visas went up really quickly. And students were like, how do I pay for this? So I was able to connect them with funding for that. So again, there are opportunities at UW, and there are folks to help assist you with that. And the awards that I've talked about here, you're fully available to apply for them if you fit the criteria. And the last one and the most common question I think I got was, what percentage of students that apply receive funding? And again, super hard to answer this. If I had to, right off the top of my head, make an estimate, I would say probably 60% of students get selected for funding. Last year was a difficult year because of COVID. So we had a lot of requests, and we also had a little bit more money to spare just because of the nature of where we were. So I think last year we had room for, in terms of the Office of the Dean's Master's Fellowship, I was able to offer like 16 fellowships. So that was 16 master students incoming that I was able to fund, which to me, that is a huge number. I know to you all, it's probably like, why just 16? But in the years past, it was like 5. So to increase that was like really nice for me. But I think the Office of the Dean's Fellowship is the most competitive just by nature of it being such a sort of a short essay prompt. Anyone is eligible. So it sort of opens up the playing field a little bit. But again, I can't give a concrete like 50% or 60%. I can only estimate, which is, I know it's frustrating, but it just depends. So yeah. So now I'm going to turn to the Zoom questions that I got. So please bear with me just 1 second. Oops, sorry. Jumped ahead a little bit. All right. So lots of great questions here. Bear with me. Bear with me, bear with me, bear with me. I also talk to myself while people are watching me. So I'm just like, so are RATA positions only for current students, or can prospective students apply? Prospective students can apply, yes. So it depends on what the TA posting will say. So when the TA posting comes out, it'll be in a PDF most times. And so you can just sort of scroll through the PDF and see what the criteria are. But yes, prospective students can apply. We have 2 graduate student assistants, or sort of TAs, I guess, in the dean's office. And one of them works to help transition our resources online. And he's a second-year epi student, epidemiology, but his first year, he was a TA for one of our faculty members in the class. So he was a first-year TA. He did great work, and now he's here. I adore him. He's great. And the other GSA, or the TA, is also in epidemiology. She's a second year. And she's working in our office with me, actually, to help talk with students about their experience at UW. So yeah, there's a range of TA-ships you can apply for. And it doesn't just have to be in your department. So let's say that you're an epidemiology student, and you see this amazing TA-ship open up in health services. You can apply for it, unless they're asking for a specific student in the posting, but it's not often I see that. So that's something to keep in mind. So for incoming students, how often do they get the RATA position? Again, that really varies. So it just depends on how many folks, one, have their packaged funding or their funding already set. 2, it depends on what the position is, and if it just sort of sparks your interest. So I know there is a little bit more competition for, if you're wanting teaching experience, there is a little bit more competition, quote unquote, for folks who are wanting to sort of assist faculty members, just because they're wanting that experience of teaching. And this is just what I've seen from the last couple of years. That said, when I was hiring one of the TAs for the dean's office, she was like one of the few applicants to apply this past, because this was back in like last month. So it was at the end of the fall quarter. Everyone had their TA ships sort of taken care of. and this opportunity just popped up, and she was one of the only people to apply. So it definitely depends on what time you're applying of the year, what time of the year you're applying. So the next question is, when will we hear about admissions decisions so that we know if we should start applying for funding? Great question. I don't know when you will find out about admission because, again, every department is different about when they're offering decisions. That said, I would just go ahead and apply. I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't be like, oh, I think I got in, I think I didn't. I would just go ahead and apply. Even if you get rejected, or maybe you decide you don't want to come to UW, it's good to start warming yourself up and applying for things and writing essays, because you're going to be writing them for other schools. So at least get into the habit of it now. And worst case scenarios, you just have an essay that you didn't need, and that's okay. So moving on. Okay, so someone said that the James McDermott Fellowship states awardees are currently enrolled in UW-SPH. Does that mean we should be accepted and enrolled before applying, or can prospective students apply now? Yes, definitely apply now. So that means that basically what happened last year is I awarded the McDermott Fellowship to someone that he had just gotten his decision of admission like that day, and then I offered him admission, or I offered him the award. So you can be a prospective student that hasn't taken classes at UW or anything, just as long as you have verification that you are enrolled and you will be enrolled. That's all I need. So again, if you apply and you don't get accepted into UW-SPH, that is totally okay. The only thing that is rough is that you wrote an essay that you didn't need. So I just really empower everybody to apply anyway, because I think it would help everybody. So the next question I got is, how much is given for the Dean's Master's Fellowship each year? Great question. And you all are gonna hate me, but this depends. So we get money for the School of Public Health every year, and for our awards. And so sometimes the amount we have sort of wanes. So it sort of rises and falls when I give it out every year. Last year, I was able to give about 16 awards. 10 of them were for $20,000. So that means that you got $10,000 each year. And the last 6 were for $10,000. So that was spread over 2 years. So you got $5,000 each year. So this year, I think we're looking to do the same. So we'll have a few awards of $20,000 applied over 2 years. And then we'll have $10,000 applied over 2 years, which is $5,000 a year. Okay, and so the next question I have is, do funding opportunities differ if a student is in a concurrent program, so co-admitted in SPH and another master's or doctoral program? No. So these funding opportunities at least don't matter. So you can be double enrolled, you can be doing a concurrent MSW, a PH, whatever you're doing. Again, as long as you fit the award criteria or whatever it's soliciting applications for, there's nothing on my end. But I would always empower folks to speak with the Office of Financial Aid just to verify, because it can never hurt just to say, hey, I'm in 2 separate programs. I got awards for one. Is this okay? They're never going to say no, but I think, again, it's just always good to run it by them, And then the next question is, when can we start applying for TA positions? I would wait until after you know of your status in, like if you've been accepted to UW, but if you're a current student, you can apply whenever you see the position. So whenever you see the position posted, you can apply for it. And if there will normally be a deadline of when they're looking to start interviewing, or they're not going to take applications anymore. So yes, I would say the benchmark for everything, though, in terms of TA and RA positions should be after you're accepted, or once you get that email saying like, hey, you've gotten admitted, congrats, woohoo, definitely hit the ground running with TA positions. But for these funding opportunities, I wouldn't wait until you're admitted. Just go ahead and start right now. So you can, literally as soon as I'm done talking, you could just like go and start typing, and I would be like, yes, they're doing it. Okay, so the last question I have here is, are all of the scholarships open to undocumented students, or are there some citizenship requirements? I'm so grateful for this question. Thank you to the person that asked this question, because I forgot. There are no citizenship requirements to my funding opportunities in the Dean's office. There are no, there's no barring you if you're undocumented or if you're a DACA recipient. Again, if you meet the requirements, or if you if you've done a research project that is similar to it, you're welcome to apply. There is absolutely nothing that will disbar you from or bar you from applying. Unless it explicitly says, of course, no one apply that is undocumented, which we don't have awards that say that. This is very inappropriate. But yeah, anyone is available to apply, or anyone can apply to these funding awards. Yeah, so I know, big deep breath, everybody. We're done. Unless someone sends another question, which I'm totally okay with, but those are all of the questions that I received. I know I went through this really, really quickly. So we're at 3:53, still have 30 minutes left. Oh, I see a question. All right, thank you for sending the question. Oops. Sorry, technical difficulties. And all right, let me see what these questions are. All right. I got a question from Aaron. How are you doing? Oh, Aaron. Oh, you shouldn't have asked this question in the middle of a global pandemic. You knew better. You know what my answer is. Everything is terrible. No, I'm just kidding. I'm okay, actually. I've had a lot of coffee, and I'm like, if you can't tell, probably can't even hear me. I'm like, I've had a lot of coffee. Pretty good. Enjoying life. It's raining here. Same. Okay. All right, folks. Well, if there are no more questions that, are funding related, feel free to stick around. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, we do have 30 more minutes. I will be here, but I know you all are very busy people, so feel free to hop off of here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. But again, if you have questions, email me, please. Please remember what I said. If you want to fail this process, you will do it by yourself. Do not do that, okay? So I'm going to stop the recording, and I will still be here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jalen.